A little bit about strategy. There are 6 basic strategies that we talk about in the back of the user guide. These are all modeled after Porter's generic strategies. There are low-cost strategies, and there are differentiation strategies. Some of those are broad, some of those are niche. Now, in the real world, uh, I usually try and give students examples of, what are some strategies these real companies are following? Well, Amazon, I always use for broad cost leadership. Uh, Disney, I mean, anybody who's been to Disney knows that they are not cost leadership. Holy cow, I'm still hurting from that last Disney trip. Um, McDonald's, everybody knows the brand, everybody knows it's a low cost niche. Uh, and Rolls Royce, I think, is a good example for like a niche differentiation strategy. But feel free to use whatever examples come to mind. You all have your own experience and your own examples. And I think when you can connect the simulation or even the strategies we talk about in the simulation to the real world or to your own personal experience, it just helps it resonate with students and it makes it more impactful in the class. So how would these look within the sim? Well, a broad cost leader, they're typically going to be positioned a little bit behind the ideal position in each market. Now, you notice they're still pretty close to the ideal spot in those segments that really care about positioning, but in the ones that don't, they're at the trailing edge, trying to keep their material costs as low as humanly possible. At the top left of any circle would be the cheapest place to build, right? It's where the sensor is largest and slowest. Now, in a market like high end, well, that's a recipe for low market share if we're all the way in the top left. So you'll see they still try to give customers what they want, but they try to do it for as cheap as they can get away with. And they're doing that in all 5 segments. With a differentiation approach, they try and give the customer exactly what they want. They're going to market themselves pretty aggressively. They want to make sure customer knows about them, they can find them. They're often not able to offer a competitive price because they have high material costs, high marketing expenses, just that high overhead really necessitates premium pricing. And if you're giving the customer everything they want, some would say it's not unreasonable to charge top dollar for that. Low cost niche, if you are abandoning the 3 high-tech markets and you expect to win, you're going to need lots of products in the markets that you do care about. The example shows 3. If it were me, I might even go up to 4. Right? You can have up to 8 products in total. If we're going to have 0% market share in any segment, we're going to need to make that market share up elsewhere. The best way to do that is with multiple product offerings. That does also help keep some of the SG&A expenses down, in that your sales budget or your distribution channel, any product within that segment is all contributing to the same sales budget. Right? If I have 3 products in traditional, they're all going towards the traditional market's sales budget. So on a per product basis, we're able to limit our costs a little more so than in these broad strategies. Now, niche differentiation, uh, same story. You're going to need multiple products to have enough market share to really be competitive in the strategy. Um, this is the one where even if those 2 cash cow markets were not part of my bigger picture, I might still keep those around for 2, 3 years, uh, just to have those sales, have those profits to help fund new product introductions in the markets that were actually important to us strategically. But there are literally thousands of ways that you could customize your strategy within the sim. I try and show these to students to give them some food for thought. I'll say these have all been proven to win. Which one is best really boils down to execution, right? The winner of the simulation will be the team that executed their strategy most effectively. It's also typically the team that is most high performing, right? The group that communicates, the group that is aligned in that vision for what to do with this company. There's 2 honorable mentions here for life cycle strategies. There's the life cycle cost leader and the life cycle differentiation focus. Now, both of these sound nice on paper. I'm going to recommend you do not do these in the seminar because it really takes a couple of years to line up your products where you'd like them to be to properly execute the strategy. Now, The idea here is we introduce a product right at the cutting edge of high tech, and we let it run its life cycle through the traditional market, and it ultimately ends up in the low end market before we would end of life the product or keep it around for as long as it's making money, right? From an execution standpoint, there's some definite advantages in that when we don't have to worry about R&D, meaning we don't have to keep pace with our target market, we can automate very, very aggressively when we introduce the new product and just make some absolutely fantastic margins early in that life cycle. Now, the drawback of this strategy is that if my product is changing from one year to the next, if the positioning is changing, the age is changing, it's really challenging to do a sales forecast. So, all of these strategies have clear pros and cons. They can all win. But from a complexity standpoint, I think you add several layers of complexity when you try to run a life cycle strategy. Because I only get to set one price for my product this year. What if it's changing segments from high end to traditional? What price do I put in? Anyway, I don't want to get too technical here, but let's just say sales forecasting is much harder with these strategies, although they can be very effective in that you're cutting R&D costs, your production costs are low. You're usually not leading the way in sales, but you usually have very competitive profits when you're pursuing one of these strategies. So I've always liked this quote by Morris Chang from Taiwan Semiconductor. Without strategy, execution is aimless. Without execution, strategy is useless. So when your students ask what strategy is best, just let them know they can all win. They can certainly invent their own. They should think about what's going to make them unique, right? Why is the customer going to choose you? Is it because you're low cost? Is it because you have better designs? Did you market your products more aggressively? Where's your competitive advantage coming from? Right? Think about that. Execute your strategy better than the other teams execute theirs, and you'll come out on top.